My name is Tzvi Lebetkin, your Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring that little bell. Ring the little bell so you're notified when new videos drop. So Doctor Who is all about change is a argument that we hear a lot. Right? We hear a lot when we say, man, Doctor Who is really, really bad now. Really, really awful. They go, well, Doctor Who's always been about change. Why don't you like these changes? Is it perhaps you just don't understand Doctor Who? Is that could be? Because well, I'm not going to get into the psychology of their argument, but yeah, that's essentially the argument, or that you're a bigot because it's just these specific changes that you can't cope with, right? So this is all a completely disingenuous argument, as disingenuous every other argument they made when you go, oh, that was really bad. That was a really bad episode. They go, wait a minute, no, citation, it was very popular. No, again, all the arguments they give are completely disingenuous. When they call you a racist, or sexist, or whatever nonsense, they do that because it's the easiest thing they can hide behind, which is this argument, in my opinion. Doctor Who's always been about change. It's like it's a soundbite that they can hide behind, and when you think about it, you analyze it in any detail whatsoever, it just crumbles. It just crumbles, as does all their argument. But we're going to look at this in much deeper detail. I think I'm trying to think of another word other than deeper. It sounds too much like detail, but we're going to be going into it much deeper. Before we get into it, can you hit the like button? That'd be awesome. Thank you very much. Can you hit the share button? Even awesomer. Even awesomer. Mostly can hit the subscribe button. That'd be great. Thank you very much. I am ridiculously grateful. Our ongoing battle with YouTube, it seems to be bearing fruit. They haven't taken any subscribers off me that I know of, right? That I know of for the last couple of days. So yeah, it is growing. It's getting up there. If you can consider hitting the subscribe button, that'd be really, really helpful, and I do very much appreciate it. And if you are subscribed, please make sure you're still subscribed. That's like I also really, really appreciate. And if you like me appreciating things, firstly, I appreciate you commenting as well. Let me. This is a good one to comment on because there could be some quite robust debate around this question. But yeah, comment because the algorithm loves your freaking comments. And if you want to be super nice make me really, really happy. Go and check out and buy. When I say go check out, I mean buy. Okay, I'm being polite. Go and buy my Indiegogo. Right. So now the links. I'm doing this because the links in the video notes. I'm not just having a fit. No. It's actually. The link's done. Finally, I'm at to the point right now where I can start contacting other podcasts, and shows and channels to go on to wrap up the campaign. We're about, $250, $300 away from $8,000. When we hit $8,000, everything gets better for everyone, right? Everything gets better. You get these. If you buy both books, it is biblical Bible stories, atheist, gracious, rash as a robes. I wrote and drew this one. We have the Imperium, a love letter to Telefancy in the 1960s. I wrote this. Dominic Ratchet did the art. It's 105 pages long. Just got the new artwork in for the additional 5 pages. Really nice. It's really freaking nice. I love it. So basically imagine Doctor Who, James Bond, Emma Peel, a monkey in a spacesuit and the Black Slab from 2001, bit of Prisoner, bit of Thunderbird. What else could you want? Well, you get a lot more stuff you want. You get a bunch of stuff like this. This is a pin-up, but I think we're going to end up being a poster. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Go check the video notes. Go check the videos, and most importantly, back it today. That'd be really, really fantastic. Thank you very much. Fine. Let's talk about the claim that Doctor Who is all about change. Right? It's all about change. No, I don't think so. I think it's a Fugazi argument, right? I think change is something that's built into the DNA of Doctor Who, but the reason there is all this change, I will say, and to a great extent, there is window dressing. It's aesthetic change, because the core concept is very, very, very adaptable. And as long as that doesn't change, then you can do literally anything with Doctor Who. So what is the core concept of Doctor Who? It's a lot of stuff that we kind of like. It's a rebellious authority that's like the black sheep of the family, who doesn't care and loves his individuality, right? That's really the hero of Doctor Who, which I think is why it really appeals to people on the out, a little bit on the outsides of society. And that's why I think it's got a huge gay following. Because I can imagine growing up, being gay, you feel a little bit different. Why do you feel a little bit different? Because you are, right? You are. If you're a little bit smarter, you feel a little bit different, right? Why? Because you are. It's just because you are. If you're a little bit different and you like to think out the box, you're an imaginative person, which again, that makes you a little bit different. Because, especially growing up in school, the education system isn't really good for you if you're not one of the central 60% of people. If you're in the top 20 or bottom 20, depending how you want to look at it, demographic, the schooling system really just doesn't work for you. And I'm not really ranking on the education system because you got to find a way of educating the most amount of people. But again, if you're a particularly intelligent person, oftentimes you will score very badly in school. Because you're bored, because it doesn't work for you, doesn't relate to you. But anyway, that's why I think Doctor Who is very changeable, because it's got that core central character, which is something that I think very recognizable, very noble and recognizable. Also, he's like this massive, authority at the same time being a very, anti-authoritative, right? There's a lot of contradictions built into the core of Doctor Who. And then, of course, it can travel anywhere in time and space, right? Travel anywhere in time and space. Essentially, and I don't think they intended this, it's a concept that you can adapt to go through any age and any genre. You keep that consistent, those elements of it absolutely consistent. You can make it anything, as we have seen. So let's take a wander through the history of Doctor Who, right? So it starts off, he's a very mysterious figure, right? In the as an untransmitted pilot, they give a lot more details to who he is. He's from the 50th century, and I'm really glad they kept it vague, because they're keeping it vague. They managed to be able to do, keep things on the fly, right? I think the more that you codify things, the staler it can get, which is why there's been so much change in Doctor Who. So anyway, it starts off, he's a very mysterious figure, but again, this very authoritative and authoritarian figure simultaneously. I mean, it makes you feel good to be different, right? I think that's great, and it can go anywhere in time and space. So I think the first real change in Doctor Who is he moves from being the anti-hero, which he certainly was in, Unearthly Child, to being the hero. I think that happens over the course of that first season, when Ian and Barbara and the Doctor kind of become friends. They kind of smooth out their animosity to one another, which is reasonably fair. He does does kidnap them. So the first change that they were surprised they survived is the initial cast leaving. Carol Ann Ford wanted to move on. William Hartnell was not happy at all, right? Was not happy. Equally, when Carol Ann Ford left in Dalek Invasion of Earth, and then Ian and Barbara left in the chase. But by the time they already replaced Susan with Vicky, you can see it survived. It survived fine, and the relationship between the Doctor and Vicky worked, right? So that when they lost Ian and Barbara, it was fine. It was absolutely fine. But the great thing about Doctor Who is it's able to adapt to the sensibilities, the culture of the age, right? That's why it hasn't remained dated, but it normally has stayed on the absolute forefront of culture. So I would say the next big change is, and again, it's not explained, is the regeneration. Or rejuvenation, as they called it then, which they explained as Doctor Who's going to shed a few hundred years and become a young version of himself as he becomes Patrick Troughton. Now, the change of main actor creates a massive stylistic change, but that still anti-authoritarian authority still is the core of that character. Still core of the character. He's more mischievous. He has a different personality, but it's still anti-authoritarian authority, right? Who can go anywhere in time and space. And so we see a subtle swing in the style of it when it's a bromance. You got second Doctor and Jamie. I'm really glad they're bringing out that season 4 as animated ones, because I totally changed my view Patrick Troughton only having his last season. But I've really done it because they're much darker, creepier stories. And again, I think it was a swing to a more mythical, I would say playful, childish, mythical first Doctor to a markedly darker sci-fi horror, right? So yeah, Doctor Who ran for like 6 years ago, and it seemed to run out of steam, right? It seemed to be done. And then I think the change really happened that did bake change into the DNA. And I want to say Doctor Who does have change baked into the DNA. But it's not all about change. The core of Doctor Who allows for there to change, but it's not all about the change, which would imply any change is good, which I think we've seen in the last couple of years, not so much. But anyway, so there was, I would say, when we moved from Troughton to Pertwee, it's a major rebranding, right? It's a major rebranding. It's a reboot. It's a soft reboot to actually somewhat hard run. Moves the colour. And amazing, because they keep that core of a anti-authoritarian authority, going through it with Pertwee. Yet they dress it up in the aesthetics of the early 70s, and you get a lot of like these eco thrillers, and you get these great Malcolm Hute ones. Again, yeah, people say, well, Doctor's always talked about politics. Yes, it has, but not in such a divisive way. It's talked about it in a much more intelligent way, which I think is where it really fails. So, yeah, I would say it's... the Pertwee is kind of progressive. It goes more into a space drama, especially when it moves from the eco thriller stuff into like standard Doctor Who fare when Liz leaves and Joe arrives, and there is a shifting of tone. It's more warmer and friendlier, right? But it's still still recognizably the same thing. And again, it shifts again with Joe leaving. We all have a lump in our throat, when Joe leaves and Sarah Jane Smith arrives. By the way, I'm in the middle of listening to the torturously long, it's 8 hours. It's 8 hours long. Book on tape from Big Finish, Scourge of the Sidemen, with John Culshaw reading it. Which is set in the Pertwee Sarah Jane Smith scene. Freaking awesome. I wish that story was an episode. Absolutely fan, but way too long. And also they could have made it into 3 discs. What I think they should have done, this is a bit of an aside, what I think they should have done is done a 2 or 3 disc release and then release a novel if they could as well, an expanded novel. I think they probably would have done better, right? They probably don't have the rights to print Doctor Who books, which is, I think, the reason they've gone in this direction. Anyway, I digress. So out goes Terrance Dicks and Barry Letts. That had a real style, and we have a lot more change comes in. With Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes. It takes about 1 or 2 stories before before the change happens. And Robot is very much a Barry Letts, Terrance Dicks type of story, right? It feels that very much set in there. But then as the season progresses, we move into the Hinchcliffe Cone stuff, which is essentially steampunk horror sci-fi. And I think they invented it. I don't think anybody was doing, but Pyramids of Mars seems to be the real template for the classic horror with steampunk ideals, and they just all works together very nicely. And so now Doctor Who is very, very different from what it was several times over. From when it started with Hartnell. Now, when you get to season 14, there is a massive change, right? There's a massive change of law. The Time Lords were portrayed as firstly as this prophet godlike figures, right? These ethereal figures, because we didn't know who they were when we first saw them, and then we get an idea. There's a bit more corruption going on with them in the Pertwee era, but basically they're like these super techno gods that can do pretty much anything. So Robert Holmes then has this wonderful idea of essentially doing the Manchurian Candidate in the Doctor Who universe, which again very infitting for the mid-70s. Why? Because you still have that incredibly anti-authoritarian authority. I think that does apply to Tom Baker, right? Absolutely apply. It is big bohemianness, how he's rejected the the traditional thing, the traditional way of Gallifrey. Now you actually see why, and I think the Gallifrey is represented here, which defined Gallifrey, and the Doctor Who fan club hated at the time, absolutely hated. Was more of a reaction against Tom Baker's Doctor Who, right? What was it that he ran from? And it really made a lot more sense, right? It did work very nicely. For me, I think it could be because I wasn't in it at the time. I got into fandom in like the early 80s. And so when I got into fandom, that was my initial view of Gallifrey, was the Robert Holmes ideal of it. But that was indeed a massive change. But I think it was a massive aesthetic change, which again built well into the DNA of Doctor Who. You can change the genre, you can change the aesthetics, and it's still Doctor Who, right? Because it is, change is put in there, but it's not the central focus. So again, the core of Doctor Who allows for change, which I think allows for the longevity. And I don't think they planned it, right? I don't think they planned it. I think they just got lucky, right? Just the same with Star Trek, right? I don't think they planned to have that magical spark between the cast, which there really was, right? That original Star Trek, there was just that wonderful magic between them all, even though a lot of them didn't end up not getting on, but there was this kind of like twinkle with it, and again I think it happened by accident rather than by design. So anyway, Mary Whitehouse gets upset with these changes, right? Mary Whitehouse doesn't like it, and then it swings again. The pendulum swings again. It gets much more comedic with Graham Williams, and even more so with Douglas Adams. But again, staying incredibly contemporary, staying on the absolute cutting edge of storytelling, of TV for the time. Especially with the silliness of the Douglas Adams, which just worked so wonderfully. It was City of Death. City of Death is another great idea. And then of course John Nathan Turner comes in, and it changes again. It becomes again much more contemporary because it's something that's able to do it. So a new title sequence. Tom Baker's a bit miffed, he's just finished his divorce with Lala Ward, and it's time for a change again. And now John Nathan Turner has a good 20 years of change going on in Doctor Who. He really capitalized on it, and because Tom Baker's built as a Doctor for so long, which he was so glad to get rid of, he wanted to go for a Doctor that was the stark opposite, and that's how we ended up with Peter Davison. Great bit of casting, really, absolutely great, great bit of casting. And then I think Doctor Who kind of it changes to its to the 80s aesthetic, the 80s ideal, but it doesn't really have that much change going on. It subtly moves away from the humor, right? I think it subtly moves away from that, and I think Peter Davison is a very good dramatic hero. He was he was considered like Henry Cavill in his time of being like super young and sexy. And then we get Colin Baker, and again we get very stark change. We're deep in the 80s. We got those 80s colors, that totally tasteless outfit, and we see Doctor Who has some changes, and it doesn't really go down so well, right? Doctor Who has changes. I think the costume and honestly, Eric Saywood just hated it by the time Colin Baker arrived. Really, I think what everybody would have been much happier with is if Peter Davison would have been happy if he stayed another year, and John Nathan Turner stayed with him, and they both left at the same time, letting a new broom come in, and again change. But this time, Doctor Who was not loved at the BBC. It was pretty much reviled at the BBC. So Colin Baker got booted out. And I think it's, evidence that all change doesn't work. If the audience reacts very poorly to the change, then maybe they should get rid of those changes, right? Listen, I like Colin Baker as well, but I think he had to be redeemed off the TV rather than from what we saw on the TV, which generally speaking wasn't very good. I mean, even when it was good, it wasn't very good. It's look, Nicola Bryant's costume is why I love it. Let me get it straight. I love Nicola Bryant's costume. It's a bit embarrassing to watch, right? So again, the next big change in tone comes on, and it really changes the show from one thing to I would say from a bit of a children's TV show stroke light entertainment disaster. Then you have season 24, which is kind of like a rebuilding season. Andrew Cartmel changes the show again, saying much more contemporary with the darker Doctor, reflecting what's going on in pop culture at the time with with comic books. He tried to get Alan Moore. He tried to get a bunch of comic book writers to it. And once again, we have significant change, but at the core, remaining at the core is the anti-authoritarian authority, right? And I think we definitely see that in McGann's one night outing. It's like and all the subsequent thing. And so by the time it's brought back in 2005. After 14 years off air, it changes again to become incredibly contemporary to the 2005 television landscape. Just incredibly contemporary. But once again, this Doctor is very anti-authoritarian, very post-traumatic stress disorder, but also massive authority, knows everything, in charge of it, can go anywhere in time and space. That's the core of Doctor Who. That's what makes it work, right? And I honestly, would it work with a female playing the part? I still think it could have done. I don't think it can anymore. I think they torpedoed that. So, I think the biggest change with the Eccleston era will be season. By the way, I do like the Big Finish ones they've done. I think the biggest change was he's the only working class Doctor, and they did that very, very deliberately because they wanted to make the Doctor relatable. And I think they saw almost immediately, right, that it really wasn't the best idea. Again, a change, but not all change is good. If you have incredible skill, you can make the change work, but not indefinitely. I think that's where we are. And I think they had an incredible piece of good luck that Christopher Eccleston left, and bringing in David Tennant, who was a big Doctor Who fan, and then Doctor Who snapped back to his default persona of being a bit posh, right? Which away from Christopher Eccleston, and then again anti-authoritarian authority throughout. Very, very contemporary to the 2005, 2010 television landscape. That's how Doctor Who can change. It can remain contemporary, but not all change is good. Then once again we change again, but I think the tone remains remarkably similar with the Matt Smith is. I think the biggest change with that is it's a era with a beginning, middle, and end, right? And it feels like they planned that last scene when they planned the first scene. The Karen Gillan turning up with which again, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. It's so wonderful. It really is. It's absolutely wonderful. Karen Gillan turning up, and they're both wearing wigs, right? They're both Matt Smith and Karen Gillan. But I think that I think that last scene was planned at the beginning, and I think that something that was new for Doctor Who. But I think it remained pretty similar. The biggest, I think it was a bigger change going from Smith to Capaldi. And again, that's an era which had a beginning, middle, and end. I wish it had two more seasons. But once again, anti-authoritarian authority. And Capaldi really did play it that way. Capaldi was, he went from being like, Matt Smith was like your kind of fun, sort of good-looking, avuncular uncle, right? To being like the dangerous uncle that your parents didn't want you to talk to, right? It's like, that's the guy, just stay away from him, right? And that because he's anti-authoritarian authority. So then we get the casting of Jodie Whittaker, and I'm on board for it, right? Because Doctor Who has changed, built into its DNA, the ability to change, the ability to stay contemporary, and it is a huge thing in culture at the time, 2017, that women were changing their roles, changing the roles in pop culture. Which again, I wasn't really. I don't mind as a female lead. It doesn't bother me. Little did I know how badly it will go down. Like little did I know, because all the women that took over basically male franchises all did the same thing. They didn't just want to have a woman play the role. They wanted to feminize a TV show, which was a change, I think, that Doctor Who couldn't stand. So then we have Jodie Whittaker come along, and I don't think she's authoritative, right? I do not think she's authoritative at all. She's always like doesn't really know what's going on or work out, and that was really an ongoing theme of the first, her first year, season 11. And I don't think she's anti-authority in any way. I think she's such an incredible conformist. She is one of the blue check marks on Twitter. So that is a change I don't think Doctor Who could bear, and I think that's the reason. Much like under the Colin Baker, is it that the series took a nosedive. By the way, you should know that the while Battlefield, Sylvester McCoy's last season, did get the lowest ratings, only slightly beating some of the later Whittaker stuff, right? Only slightly getting worse than that. It is worth pointing out it was on a much worse time slot, and the trajectory of the era was that season 26. Well, it started low, went up, and that was my personal experience. My normie friends, I was like, what was it? I was like 18, 19 when that season was running, and all my friends, were like, oh yeah, let's check out Doctor Who, because it was down with the kids. It was a bit youth, right? Again, if that was another, one of the, I think that was something similar that Hinchcliffe and Holmes tried to do as well, but because they're separated by 15 years, there's 15 years of cultural difference. But now we have this change that the Doctor is a unauthoritative authoritarian, right? So that's not really so good. That change doesn't really work at all. I think the reason they did that is because, we made Doctor Who a woman, then everybody should love it no matter what. And I think that's really the be-all and end-all of it. If you hire somebody for being a woman, then they only have to be a woman to achieve their goal. They don't actually have to be any good, which I think is where we are now. So anyway, so they did that change, which destroyed Doctor Who, I think, internally. And then they wanted to destroy Doctor Who externally, so everybody could really see it, tearing up the past completely. Now the Doctor's like is a mystery again, but not a good mystery. It's a mystery which takes away the stakes out of Doctor Who, functionally immortal. And I hear people say, no, we don't. No, excuse me, that's the vibe they gave her. Things they have so many contradictory facts going on, and it's not breeding in mystery, it's breeding in garbage. Which leads me to this, right? Leads me to this article over here. The Downfall of an Empire. This is written by somebody called Callum in year 11. I think that makes him 13 or 14. So this is the target audience that the BBC and Christian wants to get to. And you can see that he really nails it. Really completely nails it. The Downfall of an Empire, created originally by Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert, by the way. Didn't you love that in was it Human Nature, when you have Dr. John Smith talking about his mother and father being Sidney and Verity? Just absolutely wonderful. With music by Ron Granger and Dealey Darby. Doctor Who was a show like no other. It swarmed the nation upon broadcast and has been doing so for 57 years now. The Time Lord has been flailing around the universe, going from planet to planet for years, and the show has never dropped in quality and storylines. Well, it kind of did. It kind of did. Until now. Because I think the drop in storylines is really much worse than it was with Colin Baker. With the most recent episodes just passing, Revolution of the Dalek. It's if you don't know, that's what Jodie Whittaker called it when she tried to promote it. She got the name wrong. God, why? Because she doesn't give a shit about Doctor Who. She likes being Doctor Who. She likes breaking the glass ceiling. Doesn't care about the character. That's just what it seems to me. It's safe to say that Doctor Who has seen better days. Again, this is a 13-year-old running. I would even go as far as to say it's beginning to look as dead as a dodo, and the storylines are the Sahara Desert when it comes to how dry and boring they are. That's the truth. I mean, here's the thing. because they're writing it for these real authoritarians, these blue check marks on Twitter. There's so much they can't do. They're creatively constrained in so many ways, right? They're creatively like just got a noose around their neck, and so resulting is it's got to be kind of boring. Like, you can't have something. You got to have lots of representation, but if anything bad happens to any of the characters who aren't white males, then you're not allowed to do that either. So it's just it makes it very difficult in a exciting adventure show, doesn't it? In 2016, it was made known that after Peter Capaldi's final season and Somber Goodbye, viewers would receive the first ever female Doctor, Jodie Whittaker. This split fandom and half dramatic. Now, I disagree with this kid about this. I don't think it did. I mean, my opinion, from my perspective, there was a small group of fans who would dismiss it outright. And I'm sorry to say, they're all proved right, weren't they? They're all proved completely right, and I was proved wrong. But yeah, there was a bunch of fans that were upset. But I think mostly we were all excited, right? It's only when we saw it. But yeah, this guy's recollection was that, well, he was what? 10 at the time, maybe I don't know. Maybe it wasn't me. Listen, I don't want to disagree with his with his lived experience, right? But it just doesn't match mine. One half exclaimed outrage how the show had been contaminated by with too much politically correct view, and the other rejoiced in the fact that a large change was to come to their favorite show. Either way, it wasn't a great time to be a fan, as mass arguments over the internet would erupt, with the fandom remaining somewhat similarly divided today. I would say this, though. I think the cause is this. It's because there is a younger generation of fan coming in, which is great. I'm really happy for there to be a younger generation of fan. But this younger generation in general is not a generation of much fortitude, right? They can't really cope with being disagreed with, or being wrong, or living with multiple points of view. That you know what, they've been raised to be very, very authoritarian, right? Which is, I think, why they like this Doctor Who rather than any others, because I don't think they like Doctor Who being an anti-authority figure. But at the same time, they make a very, very not authoritative, which is the weird. I know that seems to be going against the absolute DNA of the character, and I think it shows. Riddickle's arrival as a Doctor was not the only thing to crawl out of the pits of hell. Alongside Peter Capaldi, the great Stephen Moffat, known for his masterpieces such as many episodes of Who, as well as being co-creator of Sherlock, series starring Benedict Cumberbatch, left handing the show over to a man who wouldn't be able to find his own head in the dark. I love this kid, okay? I like Callum, you're awesome. Chris Chibnall had previously written a small collection of episodes in the past which were unwatchable, which were unwatchable. In hindsight, you're right. They are the weakest episodes they did. I didn't notice that, and quite frankly, I kind of like the second season of Torchwood. But again, it's all about having a positive outlook when you go into it, I think. Fast forward to the 7th of October 2018, fans across the globe witnessed the debut of the first ever Time Lady in a forgettable episode, The Woman Fell to Worth. Yeah, it was kind of forgettable. Listen, I didn't know where it was going right then. At that point, I still thought it would be good. It was only by 3 or 4 episodes later I was like, well, this is terrible. As the shows progressed, fans, including myself, began to notice the poor quality in acting the unrecognizable character of the Doctor. Once again, it went from being an authoritative anti-authoritarian to being an unauthoritative authoritarian. It's the exact opposite, right? The exact opposite of what the Doctor is. Poor quality acting, unrecognized character of the Doctor, and although the production fund had certainly increased with stunning shots of CGI spacecraft and beautifully crafted sets, it meant nothing if the plot lines were dire. And I did kind of notice a lot the effects being a bit ropey. And there's some good ones. I get the Ghost Monument when you had that ship crashing. That was the only time I thought I was sold that this was going to be Doctor Who. I was like, yeah, okay, but it sadly didn't go. 2 years later, the show's rating had plummeted, with the storylines getting even worse, actors taking roles they have no love for, and the entirety of the Doctor's past being rewritten to the likes of a professional imbecile. I can't disagree with you, mate. Chris Chibnall is a professional imbecile. I think that's really a very fair description of him, a professional imbecile. Yet the BBC have become in denial and are cheekily taking the money of off the public to fund this utter rubbish. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I mean, at least they're not taking the money off the public to make a new logo that looks identical to the old one, which is just like who on earth looked at that and went, oh yeah, we should reveal this to the British public. They're going to love that we spent 50 grand on this. It upsets me to think that the show may never be restored to its former glory. Listen, I'm a man of faith. I am. I really am. But I'm also faithful. I'm faithful that one day it will come back. I believe one day it will come back. And I really do. You know why? Because of people like you, Callum. Because people like good Doctor Who. We got to get rid of these imbeciles that are choking our culture. But generally speaking, I do think it's going to come back. An empire which was one built on brilliant stories and a crew which strived to please every fan. Not today. They want to play. They only want to please the fans they consider to be human beings, which are the blue check marks, the Twitterati, which was achieved. This is truly an unforgivable downfall of an empire. That's every bit completely true, right? That is a total truth. This is an unforgivable downfall of an empire, completely unnecessary, and just tragic, absolutely tragic. Callum, you're wonderful. I do hope that one day it does come back. I really hope it does. I think it will. Time will only tell. But let me tell you, when Doctor Who comes back, it will be about bloody time. Let me tell you about bloody time. My name is Tzvi Lebetkin, the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring that little bell. Ring the little bell so you are notified when new videos drop.